Gerald Cakes. The man, the myth, the legend with the ass that woke the dead.
It's the ass that woke the dead! I don't like this funeral! It's haunted!
But who is he? What is he? And most importantly, why is he?
I'll do you one better.
Why is Gamora?
I'm embarking on a quest to tackle these fascinating and essential questions. Am I actually going to answer them? Here goes nothing. Hi. My name's Autumn, and I haven't ever done this kind of thing before. I've posted videos on this channel on and off since 2022, but I haven't ever done a deep dive video with my voice talking. So, if this sounds awkward, it's because I'm totally new to it. And I also have a Kiwi accent, so that might be strange to a lot of people. Yes, I say arse, not ass, but I am from New Zealand, and if anybody asks if I'm Australian or British, I might throw something. I can't emphasize how much I don't know what I'm doing. I literally bought my first microphone yesterday because the first recording made me want to do what Vincent van Gogh did, but to both of my ears. I'm hoping the sound quality will be a bit better this time, but I also don't know anything about microphones or audio mixing, so I'll just do my best. And in the first recording, I sounded like a bored autistic person who hates everything and also died 3 days ago. And while that's a pretty accurate description of me as a person, unfortunately, most people don't want to listen to that much monotone and vocal fry. So I'm trying to sound a little bit more lively, but this is still my first time doing this ever, so it obviously won't be completely natural. On a slightly different note, I really appreciate all the kind comments I've been getting recently, even though I don't post a whole lot because it can be hard to find time in between uni assessments and rehearsals and working part-time. I'm by no means a professional editor. I'm literally teaching myself how to use DaVinci Resolve as I go, but I do love editing videos and I love Smosh, if you couldn't tell. I'm actually really normal about Smosh. Trust. Just don't look at my YouTube history, my Google Docs, or my spreadsheets. In other news, I'm learning that tangents are apparently unavoidable for me, even when writing scripts. In summary, thanks for being patient while I learn new things, and if I don't upload for ages, there's probably a reason, and I probably haven't died. Preface over, onto the video. So the other day I was thinking about making a compilation of Courtney Miller's character Gerald Cakes, purely for the purpose of showing my coworker what I'm referencing when I say I'm on my way, which I say every time I have to go anywhere or do anything.
I'm on my way.
It's gotten to the point where she started saying it too. Sorry, Ruby. In finding clips of Gerald Cakes, I was struck by inspiration and had the ridiculous idea to essentially compile everything we know about Gerald Cakes, all of his lore, in one place. I've done this kind of thing before, specifically for Lily Onakurumara from Pitch Perfect, and I can confirm that it is entirely useless and a waste of time. So, of course, I decided to do it. Don't expect this to make sense or be ordered in any cohesive way. This is going to be scripted yapping. Gerald Cakes was born in a Smosh Pit video in October of 2023 when Courtney Miller donned this iconic outfit and uttered the iconic line, I'm on my way.
I'm on my way.
He's known, of course, for his huge butt and the pure aura he radiates. Do people still say aura? Am I cool yet? He wasn't given the name Gerald Cakes until later videos. We'll get to that. But you don't need a name to remember that ass.
That ass. That ass. Oh, that ass.
At the end of the video, Tommy says,
We struck gold today with I'm on my way.
and oh boy, was he right. Gerald was an instant hit among fans as well as the cast.
I'm on my way.
I'm on my way.
Because of this, Gerald made comebacks in other Try Not to Laughs and as a competitor on the Darts Showdown video. He's now cemented as one of Courtney's most iconic, memorable, and loved characters. For this video, I'll mainly be focusing on the Darts Showdown because that's where most of my information is coming from. But what kind of person is this guy? Well, Gerald Cakes is, according to himself, a man of few words.
I am a man of few words.
He plays darts alongside 3 competitors, played by Amanda, Shane, and Spencer. Allow me to quickly introduce them to you if you're not familiar. First, we've got Daniel Terry, professional dove thrower at weddings, looking for an assistant, definitely holding some dead birds.
The bird is fine. Everything's fine, man.
Next, we've got Fred Darts, early 2000s icon, darts master, meatloaf enthusiast.
Did somebody say meatloaf?
Just one of those days! And, of course, the iconic Chosen, katana wielder, knows too much about Star Wars, proud virgin.
I come for no.
What's it called?
These two characters combined with Gerald Cakes definitely create an interesting and extremely entertaining dynamic. Gerald says very, very little in this video. He's a man of few words. He also doesn't seem to like it when other people talk, especially while he's trying to concentrate on darts.
Quit yapping while I'm sporting. It's killing my grind.
Of the things Gerald does say, I guess a solid 50% of them are "I'm on my way," or some variation thereupon. In fact, almost every time he throws a dart, he says to himself, "I'm on my way." And he often kisses the dart too.
I'm on my way. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. I'm on my way.
To me, it seems like this is Gerald hyping himself up or encouraging himself in some way by saying his catchphrase. Or maybe this is him powering up. If he is, it's not working that well because he's not that great at darts. Sorry, Gerald. He spends most of the video losing by a significant margin and eventually, I'm pretty sure, comes in third place. The only person worse than Gerald at darts is Fred Darts.
Tell that to my broken family.
I didn't know where to put this, but I feel like it's important to mention. In the first TNTL video, Gerald says his birth control alarm is going off.
Oh, you have to go?
No, that's just my birth control alarm.
Now, I don't know jack shit about birth control, but as far as I know, the only stuff available for AMAB people is condoms and vasectomies instead of pills that you have to take regularly. This establishes that Gerald Cakes is a trans king. Love the representation.
You talking to me, son?
I was talking to her. Them. They.
Anyway, let's continue. Gerald is a quiet man, as we've established, but never mistake that for humility. This man is competitive, and I'm convinced he loves attention. In the darts video, he has a very tense rivalry with the Chosen, involving a lot of shit-talking and death stares. And Gerald is by no means a good sport, whether winning or losing.
How about this? How about I do it all over again?
I release pigeons.
A lot of the darts video consists of Gerald ridiculing the other players. There is one part towards the end where he starts to cheer Fred on, possibly because he hates the Chosen and Daniel Terry so deeply that he yearns for them to lose, even at the cost of his own victory. He later goes back to shit-talking everyone. This was most certainly an insightful glimpse into the nuanced and complex psyche of Gerald Cakes, and most certainly not Courtney just forgetting to be mean and being a sweetie. I'm gonna ignore it unless it becomes relevant. Gerald also has a habit of showing off his ass at every opportunity. And he has won awards for it.
And the award for fattest ass.
Upon winning the award for the biggest ass, he balances the trophy on said ass and poses. Slay! He's definitely not humble though, but I mean, I wouldn't be humble either if I had ass.
Oh, they are. Ayos.
Ah! One more, even bigger one. Do it again. One more big.
Oh, they are. Ayos.
Anyway, this establishes that in the Cakes universe, there are competitions for who has the largest badonkadonk. No idea if that's at all important. Just kind of interesting. It does mean that, in some sense, Gerald is famous. If not a worldwide celebrity, then at the very least, a local celebrity. Gerald's making a name for himself, with consequences both positive and negative. Despite constantly showing off his ass, and even using it as a weapon,
I don't think Gerald Cakes. Jesus Christ.
Gerald mentions multiple times how having those huge buttocks have caused him anguish in life. And I mean, it makes sense. Like, can you imagine a bunch of preschoolers and one of them has the equivalent of a boulder in their pants? Kids are mean, dude. And I would know. I've been this weird and off-putting my entire life. Believe it or not, I was worse as a kid. So I really feel for Gerald. He says that's where the anger comes from. And oh boy, suddenly Gerald has depth. His deep-seated anger and bitterness at the world stems from a childhood of ostracization and ridicule from his peers for a body part he had absolutely no control over. He stays quiet and shows no emotion, no weakness, so that nobody can hurt him like he's been hurt all his life. And he's done this for so long that anything else seems alien to him, which we can see when he asks Daniel,
How do you keep such high spirits?
"Aw, Gerald, I want to give him a hug." However, these things together seem a bit contradictory. If Gerald's ashamed of his rump, why does he flaunt it so much? I mean, it's not really something you can hide, but there are moments where Gerald intentionally shows off dad ass. And I can't help but wonder, why? Well, Gerald's not a kid anymore. He knows he doesn't have any power over the size of his butt, but he's also realized that it can function as a strength. People like big butts, and they cannot lie. Sex appeal shouldn't give you an unfair advantage over others, but it does. Being conventionally attractive gets you things. Unfortunately, we live in a society. You can get offered more opportunities, treated better by the people around you. And besides, if people are going to gawk at it anyway, why not embrace it? Why not love what you've got? Flaunt that thing, Gerald. You deserve to after all these years. Gerald is by no means a picture of perfect mental health. In fact, he still has a long, long way to go. But his first step was accepting himself for who he is, and that meant not hiding his huge dumpy. What's more, in the Smosh main sketch, I Regret My Turkish Hair Transplant, Gerald is seen at a support group for people with big butts called the Pawb Club, men with gargantuan rumps. Pawb, that's P-A-W-B, stands, of course, for fat ass white boy. Also at the meeting is Baby No Money, a character played by Shane, and Anthony God damn! Okay, no, we're not going to get distracted. We're not getting distracted. This is a huge step for Gerald, finding other people with similar experiences. Sure, he can be angry, bad at communication, and could benefit from a lot of therapy, but I'm really proud of Gerald for taking the first steps in his healing journey. Self-love and community are two of the fundamental pillars of growth. You've got this, Gerald. You're an inspiration to us all. Part 2. Some of you might have been screaming at your screen for the last minutes. You idiot. His name is Mr. T. How could you forget / not acknowledge the name change? The law is messy and nothing matters. First of all, yeah. Second of all, I'm getting there! Give me a minute! So, in the initial TNTL, Gerald wins an award and he is introduced as Mr. T.
Mr. T.
I'm on my way.
This is contradictory, obviously, because in later videos people refer to him and he refers to himself as Gerald Cakes. What's more, when he wins a different award, he is introduced as Gerald.
Gerald, I'm on my way.
So does this mean Cakes is a nickname and his name is Gerald Cakes T? I don't think this is the case. My initial thought was that Mr. T was Gerald's stage name, like a musical alter ego he took on when creating music. But this theory came crashing down when I realized that one of Gerald's friends calls him Mr. T in the first TNTL. Stage names are normal for musicians, but it's less normal to be called those stage names in day-to-day life by loved ones. So let's take a closer look at this interaction. The first ever friendly relationship we see Gerald having with any person is with an unnamed Amanda character in the initial TNTL video. The scene makes it clear that both of them are living in London. We don't see a lot of their relationship, but the scene culminates in this friend saying they feel like Gerald gets all the attention and that he's too much. Gerald gets kicked out and leaves in a huff, which makes me think this person may be more than a friend, a roommate or perhaps a lover.
And they were roommates.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
I propose the following theory. This breakup, whether platonic or romantic, was the catalyst for Gerald to move to America and take on a completely new identity, the Gerald Cakes we know him as today. Until that moment, Gerald was Mr. T, but as soon as things became difficult, he fled from his problems. Which one is his real name, or if either of them are, is impossible for me to know. What we do know is that he lives in America at some point because of his ties to the US government. Yes, the government. More on that later. Part 3. Gerald's first video, Try Not to Laugh number 131, tells the story of his arrival to a new neighborhood. Despite the fact that aforementioned roommate sketch shows Gerald in London, all other characters in this scene have American accents, so unless by some crazy coincidence they all happen to be from the States, I think I can safely say that Gerald moved to London before these events. In the first scene, we don't even see him. Instead, we see two neighborhood women, Cheryl and Martha, played by Chance and Amanda, discussing his arrival. Martha informs Cheryl that there's a new person in town, and he has a
Fat ass.
He does not.
to which Cheryl is scandalized and clearly feels threatened. The next scene shows Gerald being shown around a mid-century home. Apparently someone was murdered there, but don't worry, white women love that. A man, who we later find out is called Jerry, drives by, and being so distracted by Gerald's ass, crashes and dies. At Jerry's funeral, Cheryl directly calls out Gerald for being the reason that he died, and Gerald subsequently cries tears of sorrow, complete with ass jiggles of sorrow. In response to this, Jerry is revived to continue gawking at Gerald. Yes, you heard that right. Jerry comes back from the dead. We'll get there. This is a lot, so let's try break it down. What does this tell us about Gerald? Well, we can assume that he moves into aforementioned mid-century home and meets his neighbours at least once. Not necessarily even formally, but possibly through police investigation or something. We can assume this because Martha and Cheryl know that Gerald is the reason Jerry died, and they're understandably pretty pissed at Gerald, even though it isn't his fault. But I also feel like there's an element of resentment in there, because Cheryl is no longer the fattest ass in the neighbourhood. This brings us to Jerry, a man who somehow manages to see Gerald's ass through the window of the house while driving. Yes, Yes, it's that big, I guess, and dies as a result.
Oh my god!
It's clear that Gerald feels remorseful about this, and I'd imagine this memory is particularly painful. It feels to me like part of the origin story for a tortured character who struggles to open up but eventually learns to trust those around them and accept themselves for who they are. Like Gerald, obviously. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Gerald's ass is so magnificent, so gargantuan, so biblically huge that any person nearby can't help but physically be drawn closer to it. Any person, including corpses. It's like the sex turban, but a little less questionable.
My ancestors were oppressed!
But this begs the question, how? Is Gerald's ass supernaturally stupendous? Is Gerald a necromancer who happens to have a huge dumpy? Is Jerry an immortal creature who was revived at the perfect time? All of these questions have been bouncing around inside my tiny, tiny little head for days, and I will get to them. Kind of. For now, let's move on to Gerald's love life. Gerald Cakes has a habit of having extremely palpable romantic or sexual tension with Shane's characters. This is probably because they're married. That's irrelevant. Shut up. There are three, quote, flirtatious relationships Gerald has had with Shane characters. They are as follows. The Chosen.
Greetings. I am the Chosen.
The Bystander.
Some guys stand there!
And Biker Guy.
I'm a biker guy.
I'm not going to include Shane's character Jerry from earlier in this video because he appears and then immediately dies, but it is worth noting that there was another Shane character who was enchanted by Gerald's butt. Let's start with Biker Guy because he's the least interesting. Biker Guy is sitting in the restaurant, for some reason having the menu read out to him by a very tall and beautiful waitress, when Mr. Cakes walks past, and Biker Guy loses his mind.
I mean, I want to take a bite of that.
There's no reciprocation on Gerald's part. He just kind of stands there and looks, so this doesn't really count as a relationship, just one-sided ogling. Biker Guy makes another appearance when Gerald wins an award for his album I'm On My Way, but other than that, he doesn't really matter that much as a character. Let's move on then to The Chosen. The Chosen and Gerald spend the entire darts video shit-talking each other, and I can smell the tension between them. It kind of gives the energy of two macho straight men trying to constantly one-up each other, like it's a competition to see who gets to top who at the end of it all.
45 points.
How about less than that?
How did you get 0 and then
How about-
got a bullseye?
Oh, meatloaf!
Like, come on, guys, just kiss already. There's literally one part where Gerald tells the Chosen to bend over and look at his own asshole.
What kind of trick shots should I do?
Between the
Okay,
legs.
fly.
How about between the
Swim
legs?
underwater.
Can you see your own
Swimming
asshole?
underwater is what?
Bend over and see your own asshole, dude.
Yo, I think this guy's got an anal fixation!
While I was finding clips for this, I came across this video. So shout out to Boone Alina for making a compilation of Gerald Cakes and the Chosen having sexual tension, because they really do. Now, these two don't ever canonically get together or even acknowledge the clear feelings between them, but you really can't deny it. There's definitely an enemies to lovers fic about that out there. I'm not going into the trenches to find it, but you can. Let me know how it is. Or, actually, maybe don't. What might be canon, however, is Gerald and the Bystander. For those of you who aren't familiar, the Bystander is a character played by Shane, introduced in TNTL 141. He likes to stand in the corner ominously and watch Angela, who gets very wound up about the whole thing.
Save me! I'm begging you! He won't leave me!
The Bystander appears in this same TNTL, arms interlocked with none other than Gerald Cakes. He tasks Gerald with the delivery of a very important note.
It says, am I a cuck? And then there's 50 yes checks.
It says, am I a cuck? Oh my lord, the implications. My god, what a power couple. Can you imagine Gerald Cakes and the Bystander? They must have the craziest conversations. Anyway, this is huge to me because it tells me that at some point Gerald has been in a committed relationship with the Bystander. I'm fascinated to know what that'd look like.
We saw you from across the bar.
No.
Well, at least we know that Gerald and the Bystander are into gay threesomes. So, let's recap all of this info, this time in chronological order. Gerald lives in London where he goes by the name Mr. T, gets kicked out by his roommate/partner, moves to a new neighbourhood to escape his problems, kills a man, wins an award for his butt, gets in a relationship with a bystander, and finally makes the unspeakably brave decision to go to a support group with like-minded people. Or maybe like-butted people. Like reared people? Like caked people. Like don't be people. Dating the Bystander, to me, speaks to Gerald's growth as a character. When we first meet him, he comes across as closed off and unwilling to show any sort of vulnerability, except for ass-jiggling sobs, of course. Not 10 TNTLs later, he's in a committed relationship, or at least it seems so, with a person who is also stoic, quiet, and radiates extreme aura. In my opinion, this relationship is what gave Gerald the strength to become a member of the Paul Club with Baby No Money, some guy, and Anthony Padilla. In total, Gerald appears in 5 videos over the course of approximately 6 months. 6 videos if you count the TNTL for Courtney's birthday, and I don't. But in that time alone, we get to witness the beginning of Gerald's journey to recovering from a lifetime of isolation and several traumatic memories. The guilt from Jerry's death, a childhood and adulthood of bullying, a lifetime of struggle, the anger, it hasn't been easy. On the contrary, Gerald's experiences have left him hurt and afraid. And at the end of these 5 videos, Gerald is by no means cured, but he's taken the first and most difficult step, accepting that there's a problem and seeking help. We should all aspire to be like Gerald. Thank you to Courtney for giving us such a beautiful story about mental health, and I'm sure you did it entirely on purpose, and I am not overanalyzing anything. We're getting into the silly part of the video. Let's go back to Gerald in the darts video. If you notice the way he interacts with the other 3, it comes off as odd. Gerald, as we know, is a man of few words, and character-wise, it makes sense that he doesn't speak a lot. But if we overanalyze and overthink, 2 things I'm exceptional at, things start to look a little different. The way Gerald physically interacts with Fred, the Chosen, and Daniel, to me, is notable as well as how little he speaks. He comes off as almost curious, or annoying in a younger brother way. When he wants someone's attention, he just sort of pokes them, or maybe it's just because he wants to see what they'll do. He picks up the Chosen's sword a couple times, and even knocks it over.
You're a troublesome lad!
Gerald also demonstrates curiosity about some things.
So what is a Limp Bizkit?
It's kind of like he's perplexed by the people around him, studying their behavior, gauging what he should and shouldn't do, almost as if he's not quite human. At this point, you might be saying, but don't be such a silly, stupid little guy. You can't just make crazy claims like that with no proof, idiot. Fear not, dear viewer. I've got more to say. Also, be nice to me. I have theories, but my theories are irrelevant. For now, we'll focus on things said by The Chosen, Daniel, and Fred. There's one point during the darts video where Daniel says he thinks Gerald is like a Cyclops. The Chosen responds by agreeing, but saying he thinks he's more like a centaur.
Gerald is kind of like Cyclops. He takes off his sunglasses. We're all toast.
I'd say it's more of a centaur, but yeah.
Despite me being a classics major, I feel like I'm not totally clear on what they're talking about here. Time for a side tangent about mythology. Okay, so this is really embarrassing. Don't laugh. I wrote a solid 4 paragraphs going on a mini research spiel about cyclopes, like the ancient Greek mythological creatures, as well as centaurs, like the ancient Greek mythological creatures, and spent a hot minute trying to find some sort of link between centaurs, cyclopes, and sunglasses, despite the fact that sunglasses literally didn't exist back then. I then concluded that Amanda was getting her mythology mixed up and getting confused with Medusa from the Percy Jackson movies because she wears sunglasses, and that's literally the only link I could find until I rewatched the clip and I realized Daniel never said a Cyclops, just Cyclops. Daniel Terry was, in fact, referring to the character Cyclops from X-Men. Okay, sorry, I'm not that much of a nerd. For anyone who, like me, is not familiar with X-Men, centaurs apparently do exist in this universe, but I couldn't find a lot about them apart from one guy called Danny Wiley, who's apparently like a centaur with wings and super speed. I don't really know what Shane was on about. Does he think Gerald is half horse? Maybe an uncivilized drunk? Maybe a wise old guy from the franchise that must not be named? Honestly, I have no idea what Shane's getting at here, so I'm just gonna leave it unless it becomes relevant. Hint, it doesn't. If anyone watching knows anything about X-Men, please do enlighten me. In the same vein, Shane also says that he thinks Gerald's a robot that's glitching out.
I think Gerald Cakes might be a robot that's glitching out now.
Which is funny, but seeing as it's vague and I have no evidence, I'll also leave that one for now. Maybe it'll be important later. Hint, it won't be. Back to Cyclops. So, Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, is oh my God, the lore. Okay, what I'm getting is that he can shoot lasers from his eyes, but he can't control it, so he wears special glasses in order to not kill everyone. Sick. Now, this all begs the question, does Gerald have magical fucked up eye powers? I don't think that's quite what Daniel's implying here. More that he has some sort of vague supernatural power activated through his eyes. So it's not that they'll all be reduced to ashes if he takes the sunglasses off, but just that something bad will happen. Now, Daniel Terry may not be the best at keeping his doves alive, but when it comes to Amanda, I trust her intuition. If she thinks something bad is going to happen, I believe her. I think we need more information before we start theorizing on what the something bad is. But at the very least we can say, according to Daniel Terry and The Chosen, Gerald has powers, and he never disputes this claim. These powers are possibly linked to how Jerry came back from the dead, making me think they're also linked to the size of his ass, but I'll come back to this. It's also worth mentioning that Gerald can be seen in the first TNTL taking off his sunglasses. You'd think this would throw a spanner in my theory, but it just means I need to adjust it slightly. Gerald can control his powers, but only in short spurts, so he needs the glasses so he doesn't use up all of his energy all of the time. That, or Gerald's London friend, is fully immune to Gerald's eye powers. Or Gerald's eye powers are more like some sort of radiation that's okay to be exposed to in small amounts. Like how we're fine to do an x-ray, but doctors and nurses have to make sure that they stand behind the special glass. Maybe Gerald's sunglasses aren't to protect others, but to protect himself. I'm tangenting sideways. The point is, vague magic powers in the eyes, sunglasses can come off for a little bit. We don't have any specific idea yet of what Gerald's powers could be, but to maybe shed more light on that, let's first ask the question, where are these powers from? Was he born with them? Was he gifted them? Were they created artificially? Did he end up with them by a happy or unhappy accident? Well, none other than the Chosen and Fred Darts have something to say on this.
What if Gerald somehow manages to do this? Oh, I keep forgetting that God hates him.
My God cursed him with this voluptuous bottom.
I'm sorry, God cursed him? Now this is interesting. Somehow, Gerald Cakes angered God so much that he was cursed with a massive booty, which we know has caused him a lot of pain in his life. Usually when people say God, at least in Western culture, they're referring to the Christian God, but just to make things fun, I'm not going to make assumptions. We're keeping it open to any God, especially because we don't know what religion's like in the Cakes universe. But this curse could potentially be the source of Gerald's supernatural powers. I mean, I don't know a whole lot of other places you can just find a magical ass, which is also the bane of your existence. I do think it's relevant to mention that in this universe, Hogwarts does exist.
A portal to the netherworld has been opened in Hogwarts.
Meaning magic also exists. Maybe, with some luck, J.K. Rowling doesn't exist. And while Hogwarts is a thing, this universe is not necessarily identical to the Harry Potter universe. So it's not actually too far-fetched to think that some sort of deity or wizard parading as a god put an irreversible magic curse on Gerald. But was it just Gerald? This is where one of my favourite TNTL bits of all time comes into play. Gertrude Cakes, as portrayed by Chance.
Can someone fly in Gertrude Cakes?
Where's the hole?
Jesus Christ.
I've been sitting under that blanket the whole time.
No f***ing way.
I've been right there under that blanket just like this for an hour and a half. Okay, I'm gonna go home.
He looks so disheveled. On top of being hilarious, this also gives me a little bit more info. Gertrude Cakes is, I would assume, related to Gerald, and seeing as we know Gerald is in a relationship with the bystander, I think it's more likely she's blood related. Wait, no.
We're not blood related.
What I meant to say is I think it's more likely they are biological family. Gertrude could be Gerald's mother or sister or aunt or other relative. And because Gertrude looks to be around the same age as Gerald, I think it's pretty clear she's probably his sister. Her catchphrase is slightly different. Instead of, I'm on my way, she says, I'm already here. But here's the interesting part. Gertrude has big honkers. I mean, huge bahonka-donks. I mean, gigantic bahonka-flonka-honka-badonka-donka hoo-has. Like, supernaturally. Gertrude was cursed too. So this makes me think the curse wasn't for Gerald in particular, but his entire family, like the Yelnats family from Holes. Will Gerald be the one to make the journey up God's thumb and eat onions with his bestie and then find buried treasure? Maybe that's what he means when he says he's on his way. He's on his way up the metaphorical mountain to find a way to break this curse. And now that we've seen another example of the curse in action, we can be more specific as to what the curse actually is. It wasn't some god deciding to give Gerald a big butt on a whim because it was funny, but it was Gerald's family being cursed with perpetually being perceived as sexual objects for other people to stare at. The curse wasn't cake, the curse was objectification. Despite the whole generational curse thing, I would still maintain that Gerald is the one who provoked the god, because Fred specifically says God cursed him, not God cursed his family or God cursed his great-great-uncle, God cursed him. That God's curse was directed at him, but also affected his entire family, or at the very least, his sister. Oh, Gerald. What a magnificent fuck-up. Anyway, my theory thus far is this. Gerald committed some sort of hubris or blasphemy, or just something that pissed off a god or powerful deity who cursed Gerald and his family with some magnificent cake. This magnificent cake led to ridicule and isolation for his entire life, meaning he was probably cursed as a child, as well as objectification and a magnetism towards dead ass that is so strong that it has the power to revive the dead. Are you with me so far? Somehow, Gerald gained some supernatural ability related to or activated through his eyes, either as a side effect of the curse or a spell he performed on himself, which would make him a wizard. The sunglasses he wears at all times are to protect those around him, but if at any time he chooses to take them off,
We're all toast.
Also, side note, this entire cursed by God discussion is prompted because Gerald threw a dart and missed. Yup, as well as having a huge butt, Gerald is also cursed to be perpetually bad at darts. And that's absolutely hilarious. Let's sideline the divine booty curse for now and acknowledge yet another massive piece of lore I've been ignoring. Gerald's connection to the government. Literally in his first scene, he is employed by the president to go plug up a hole in the Hoover Dam.
I know just the guy. Let me call him. Go, go, go!
I'm on my way.
Tommy Boy for president. I'd vote for him. Hack into my heart, you'll see my devotion. And this happens again in the same video, where Gerald goes to plug up a hole in Hogwarts. Did you already forget Hogwarts exists in this universe? Me too. Yikes. So, does Gerald work for the government? It would seem so, as some sort of national weapon or tool used to save the day in times of crisis. He's kind of like an Avenger, but better.
As far as I'm concerned, that's America's ass.
Additionally, in the darts video, Gerald tells the Chosen it's his mission to get under his skin.
Believe me, Chosen, it is my mission to get under your skin, and I have.
And the Chosen responds by asking,
Who sent you? The CIA?
The other one.
The anti-CIA.
This means it's canon that the Chosen is an enemy of the US government, completely in character, and Gerald was sent by the anti-CIA to make the Chosen bad at darts? And I guess it works, because Daniel wins, but it's a bit of an odd goal. I mean, this is the same government that chose to fix a hole in the Hoover Dam by sending a guy, just a real cheeked up guy, and it's also the American government. So, remember what I said earlier about Gerald being not quite human? Forget that, I've adjusted my theory. He is quiet and observant, not because he wants to learn to mimic human behavior, but because he's trying to get information for the anti-CIA. He's not an alien or a mythical creature or even a mutant like Cyclops, just a guy with a supernatural curse who is also an undercover spy, and maybe a wizard. This also gives me a more solid explanation for the whole Mr. T thing. Mr. T was Gerald's fake identity when he was working as a spy for the US government in London. Maybe he fled his old roommate because she found out who he really was. That's also why his accent changes so dramatically over the course of the videos. He's not British, and once he returned to America, he was able to drop the horrible accent.
It's just proof that your struggles will have a payoff in the end.
He's British.
None of us thought you were British.
I'm on my way.
Wow, hasn't this been so fun? I've come to no real conclusions and wasted my time doing something entirely pointless, just the way I like it. Let's do one final recap of everything we know about Gerald Cakes. Mr. Gerald Cakes is a reserved man who struggles to connect with others and is closed off as a result of a lifetime of being criticized for the size of his ass. Him and his family were cursed when he was a child to have huge asses and or tits, and also be bad at darts because Gerald angered some sort of deity and he has Cyclops eye powers, probably as a side effect. Gerald lives in London for a time where he works as a spy for the anti-CIA. His roommate/lover kicks him out and he decides to go back to America. He moves into a town where he is accidentally responsible for the death of a man called Jerry, who can't help but ogle as he's driving. Martha and Cheryl, his neighbors, don't like Gerald because of his ass, and then Jerry comes back to life at his own funeral, also because of Gerald's ass. Gerald is even more distraught and continues his pattern of running away from his problems. With some help from the bystander, who he does end up dating, he begins to reflect, heal, and find community in the Porb Club. Also, he's a trans king. I have no idea what specifically Gerald's eye powers are, who gave them to him, or why he got them. Sorry, I did my best. Maybe I shouldn't have chosen a character who appears in 5 videos and only ever makes small cameos for one joke. I'm not really sure what I expected. Thank you for watching this video if you did. Every little interaction means so much, especially because I don't make any money from this, and it can be hard to find time to make these kinds of things in between uni, work, rehearsals, and trying to have a life. I appreciate every nice comment because, like I said, I'm still learning how to edit, let alone script and write videos. This is me trying out a new thing, so I guess I'll see what happens. If people want me to, or if I feel like it, I might do one for the Dumpster Wizard, because I feel like there'd be a lot more material to go through. If this video gets -3 likes, I'll turn my Lily Onakura mother entire thing into a video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a dislike and unsubscribe. Bye!